Coming up on today's show, I'm going to give you the facts and the real reason why the New York Knicks made the trade for Karl Anthony Towns that sent Julius Randle and Donte DiVincenzo to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Before we dive into that, though, make sure you are subscribed to New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports. We put out free, informative, entertaining updates every single day on your New York Knicks, sometimes multiple times a day. And we're almost at our goal of 53,000 subscribers, and I need your help. If you love the Knicks and you want free videos every day, smash that sub button. You're watching Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. I appreciate everybody for stopping by, as it was a crazy weekend with our New York Knicks. A blockbuster trade that somewhat comes out of nowhere. A complete roster shakeup for this basketball team. Karl Anthony Towns, you are a New York Knick, and Julius Randle, and my guy, the Big Ragu, you are no longer Knicks. And everyone's talking about, Marshall, did you see the Knicks traded for Karl Anthony Towns because Donte DiVincenzo didn't want to be here? Let's pump the brakes on that. I'm not so sure. I'm actually pretty dang confident that's not why the Knicks made this trade. Ian Begley of SNY, he reported this, saying, I can confidently say that Donte DiVincenzo didn't exactly love the idea of playing fewer minutes or reduced role this season. He was coming off a career year and helped this team win a bunch of games when it was shorthanded. Of course Donte DiVincenzo was upset that he was a starter last year on a team that won 50 games. He had his best season in the NBA, and he was then going to be moved to the bench. Anybody in the world would be upset with that. But that's not why the New York Knicks made this trade. Of course Devo's a little bit upset. Look at what he did as a bench player for the Knicks compared to what he did as a starter. Look, he came here. A lot of people had different expectations for him, and he was falling short of those expectations before he was made a starter. But once he did, he showed why the Knicks signed him, and he showed that he could be an elite player in this league, averaging over 17 points per game as a starter, shooting over 40% from three, making big-time plays, hitting big-time shots. Then he got to the playoffs, and he put the entire NBA on notice. 17 more points per game in the playoffs, 43% from downtown. That amazing Game 7 performance where he almost pulled off a comeback single-handedly. Of course, DiVincenzo, after having his best productive season in the league, was a little bit upset. And I think that Ian Begley, look, I want to say this. I think people overreacted to what Ian Begley had to say because they didn't mention this at all. Everybody said, Marsh, did you see? Well, you didn't see this. I don't think any competitor would be thrilled with the idea of taking a reduced role in this situation. Imagine someone at your job, after having a career year, expecting a big raise and expecting a big payday, they go out and trade for a guy that you went to college with, that you backed up with, and now you have to go back to backing him up. Of course he was upset. But I don't buy for a second that the Big Ragu wanted to be traded at all. He knew that this was maybe the best spot in him for the NBA, playing with his boys, playing for the best organization in sports in Madison Square Garden with a chance to put a banner in the rafters. There is no way Donte DiVincenzo wanted to be traded. And Ian Begley, he said that, saying, this is just a guess, but I don't think the issue described above played a significant role, if any at all, in the Knicks' decision to move Donte DiVincenzo. They were against moving him for much of the offseason. The Knicks did not want to trade Donte. Donte did not want to be traded. If there was such a strong belief, and I'm not saying that's to Ian Begley, I'm just saying this to the people that are telling me this is why they made this move. If there was any strong belief that DiVincenzo wanted to be traded, how come a story never came out until he was traded? You're telling me he got traded and then his camp put word out there that he wanted to be traded? No, we're just connecting very easy dots. Of course he was upset. He was a starter. He played great. He thought he deserved to have that same role. He didn't. The competitor and anybody would be a little bit upset, but also knowing it is for the better part of the team. The Knicks wanted to include Mitchell Robinson in this trade. That's very well documented. We told you guys that for months. The Wolves said no, and the Knicks knew they had to trade Randle now. That's the real reason. We'll tell you why. To get a deal done. And Cat was always the guy. And the final piece of the puzzle they had to put in the trade was DiVincenzo. Look, the Knicks made this trade for one reason and for one reason only. And it wasn't because DiVincenzo demanded that the New York Knicks traded him. Not even in the slightest. I hope that we all understand that. I'll tell you in a second why the Knicks made this trade, but we've all had a couple days to think on it. We've all gone to sleep and hopefully removed a little bit of the emotion because this was a heartbreaking trade on so many different levels. Now that we're a little more cool, calm, and collected, grade the trade. ABC to your F. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. You're about to get hit with the YouTube ad break. While the ad plays, scroll on down and let me know your grade of the Karl Anthony Towns trade. I think this was very important because I've said this 500 times on this channel. Brian Windhorst of ESPN. There had been no progress on a contract extension in talks over the summer between the Knicks and Randle, who was likely headed towards free agency in 2025. Told you. We told you. It wasn't because Randle knew the Knicks needed to go out and make a trade for a center. It wasn't because Randle was so locked into this year. The New York Knicks were never going to lose leverage here. The New York Knicks were not going to back themselves in a corner and play this season with Randle on the team with the potential for him to leave in the summer for nothing. If you actually thought they were going to do that, don't stay up on Christmas Eve and leave cookies out. The fat man ain't coming down the chimney. More on this and why the Knicks actually made this trade. But first, go to chatsports.com/RealKnicks and get your Knicks Now Real One t-shirt as we're like 20 sleeps away from the NBA season being here. Knicks, Boston, 22 days away. Make sure you're ready to go for the season opener. Chatsports.com/RealKnicks. That is chatsports.com/RealKnicks. That link will be clickable down in the comments and description of today's video. The Knicks were never going to play that game. The New York Knicks were not going to enter the season with Julius Randle being a part of this organization without a contract extension. They just saw Paul George leave the Los Angeles Clippers for nothing. Their team and their season and their era is now in question. The Knicks weren't going to do that. They're the most forward-thinking organization. I don't know how many times I said it, but we said that the Knicks are having the same conversations that we are on this show. Julius, if you want to be here, here's the contract extension. Julius, if you want to shut down the trade rumors, you sign the extension. If not, the trade rumors will open up, and we're going to have to do what's best for the Knicks now and in the future. And they thought, and they made the decision that trading Randle, who could be a free agent, for Cat, who's long-term locked into his contract, and someone that's always been a person the Knicks wanted to make a trade for, they made it happen. Brian Windhorst also said this. Randle, an all-star each of the past 2 seasons, had seen the franchise totally change around him over the past 9 months. This is important. And he wasn't sure where exactly he'd fit with a team built around Jalen Brunson and former Villanova teammates. Randle knew he would likely be playing a ton of rugged minutes at a position at center in what was shaping up to be a contract year. This wasn't just a decision that the New York Knicks knew they had to move on from Julius Randle. Julius Randle also knew that the writing was on the wall and his time as a New York Knick was most likely coming to a close. This marriage was approaching a fork in the road. And they made the decision. Randle, look what Windhorst just said. Randle didn't know his fit on this team anymore. Randle didn't know what it was going to be like where Jalen Brunson had a C on his chest, and he's got Mikal Bridges, and he's got Josh Hart here. Randle knew that his time as a Knick was coming to a close. And he knew that it was probably going to be for Karl Anthony Towns because a part of the Mafia, and the Knicks have been pursuing Karl Anthony Towns since he committed to Kentucky. Yes, the Knicks have been approaching and thinking about adding Karl Anthony Towns since he was a Wildcat. Matthew Piper Jenks, who works for Barstool Sports, put a tweet out this over the weekend that went viral, saying, World Wide West sat next to me at a Knicks game in December 2015. We got along great talking ball. Mid-game, he called Tom Thibodeau and even put me on the phone to show off his power in the NBA underworld. Tibbs was friendly. World Wide West hung up, looked me in the eyes, and gave me 2 predictions. Tibbs will eventually be the coach of the Knicks, and Karl Anthony Towns will be better than Porzingis, and he will also be on the New York Knicks. Cat to the Knicks, has been in the works for almost 9 seasons. And Brian Windhorst echoed that in his piece that he wrote, saying, if there was one player Leon Rose coveted more than Jalen Brunson, a de facto member of his family when he was hired as Knicks president in 2020, it might have been Towns, both with deep New Jersey roots. Rose has bonded with Towns when he was a teenager, and his agent had been there with him from his Kentucky days to being picked number 1 overall to becoming a max contract player. We told you guys that the bloodline in the CAA Mafia rolls deep. How many times have we said it? Once a Mafia member, always a Mafia member. And Karl Anthony Towns was always endgame for Leon Rose, World Wide Wes, Gerson Rosas, Brock Aller, and the 2024-2025 Knicks. The Knicks made this trade to make themselves better, and now and in the future. They didn't know if Randle was going to fit. They didn't know how he'd bounce back from injury. And they didn't know if he was going to want to be a part of this team long term. The Knicks, I promise you, they offered Randle a contract. Was it fair? I don't know. Randle said no. They looked at each other and said, okay. And here we are. He's in Minnesota. Cat's a Knick. And the season's right around the corner. Knicks fans, show your center some love, though. I know there's a lot of different thoughts about Karl Anthony Towns, and really the only thought we should all have is he's making us better, he's a damn good player, and he's going to help us win a chip. Show him some love. Type cat down in the comment section. And make sure you are following me over on social media. The first place you would have heard about the Karl Anthony Towns trade was on my social media pages. So give me a follow at @MarshallGreen_ on Twitter. Same handle on IG. And let's go Knicks!